everyone. Welcome to Wild on Design, a webcast series presented by Women in Luxury Design and the Pacific Design Center. I'm Jennifer Convy. I'm the host, and today's topic is about the art of creating contemporary architecture and design for luxury homes and estates. And our two guests today are masters of this. In fact, they're stars, superstars in their own right, but they actually work together on many projects. And I can't wait to hear them discuss how they work together, their philosophies in design, architecture, collaboration, and what's in demand. So welcome, Paul McClean of McClean Design. He's an Irish... Hi, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Irish-born architect now in California. Yay! And Kathryn Rotondi, KFR Design, a native Southern Californian. Yay! Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. It's so good to see you both, and thank you so much for making the time. I think, Paul, you just got off a plane. You guys are super busy.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
How are you both doing? Let's just ask that. After this crazy year.
Amazing. Busier than ever, but doing really well.
Great. So instead of reading your terrifically written bios, I mean, they're wow. We will include them in the promotion of this episode, of course. But I just think it would be wonderful, in your own words, each of you, to talk about the journey. Paul, if you would tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming the architect that you are today. I know it started very early for you.
Yeah, I mean, we always have those questions like, what would I do if I wasn't in this? And I really don't have any other options. You know, I think I was preordained from early childhood to do this. I grew up, I always wanted to be an architect, but I didn't really have exposure to architecture or architects, but I just knew I liked drawing. I like drawing houses in particular. I always liked housing, and when I went to architecture school, I became more and more intrigued with the type of residential architecture that was going on in Southern California, which I don't know if all our listeners know, but I mean, Southern California has been probably the crucible of contemporary modern residential design for over 100 years now, and a lot of things contribute to that, and we may get into some of that, but it obviously got my attention. I wanted to come over here and see some of those homes and try my hand, and luckily it worked out. So,
yeah, I'd say so.
Still here, 27 years later. So,
how many years?
27 in California now. So
that's impossible in boy years. You're only 27 now. What? Where's the dog years? Stay with me on that. I have brothers; they agree with me. Anyway, Kathryn,
yes.
Let's hear about you. Of course, I know all about both of you, but let's share. Please shamelessly brag. Tell us about.
I'm born and bred here in Los Angeles, True Angelino. It's my home. And I actually grew up with a tremendous amount of inspiration and family that were actually architects and designers. My father's a builder, 45 years. My uncle's a very well-known architect, Michael Rotondi. Both of them studied at SCI-Arc. So I can say that it's in the blood. I started off by interning quite young for them. I knew that there was something inside of me that was very much drawn to not only architecture, but design and the building process. So I grew up with it as a little girl. And then I went away to college and I got my master's at UCLA in interior architecture. And from there, I started interning and working for some of the biggest firms, and then studying and getting my master's, wrapping that up while I was at Fendi Casa, which is where I met the fabulous Paul. And I started working on very high-end residential projects there. And I started my company about 6.5 years ago.
Wow. So we're going to delve into, this whole California luxury contemporary thing. But I also want to talk about right now about how you've collaborated and are working together continuously. You've done many projects together, right?
Yeah, we've probably done, at least 10, Katie, right?
Yes.
Wow.
About 10.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, I'm sorry?
We have a very fluid, fun process, and Katie's is a treat to work with every time. And she has such an optimistic and positive attitude. So it's kind of like, how can we solve these problems today? And trust me, we've had some very interesting That's a good
Yeah.
way.
Do tell. Give an example.
That's very
Just
true.
one.
Yeah.
Well, we've done some homes for that were for sale, development homes, so they've been under a lot of pressure. And these homes at this level, I mean, people are used to getting what they want, but developers doing homes at this level are in a whole category of their own. So people management is a big part of our job, I think.
A little demanding?
Absolutely. A lot demanding. Yes. Yeah. Our first project was Sorbonne. That was, I think, gosh, maybe, was that like 9 years ago or so?
What was your first project?
It was on Sorbonne in Bel Air, and I was working for Fendi at the time, and I did the full curation, overseeing all of the furniture and the lighting and the art, and so that was our first project, and then all the way to the one, this last W.I.L.D, massive in scale, phenomenal project.
Let's talk about the one. Okay, so just real quickly here, for those that don't know, a builder once told me if the home is known by the name rather than the address, then it's probably more house than you need.
I like that. That's good.
Okay, I know, right? So the one. Yes, 9 years in the making. You two were there from the ground up, collaborating, working together. I will tell you that I had the great privilege of Kathryn taking me recently for a mock speed tour. It was stunning and mind-blowing. You both did incredible work. Paul, you're known for certain elements that you always bring in. It has your stamp. I've seen some of your homes. Natural light,
water, connection to outdoors. Those are the things that drive glass, yeah. Views, more water.
You come into the project like this and you start from the ground up together in your collaboration. You said it's been seamless. And of course, I'm sure the problems come up and all that. But what I see that you guys do together is that even though these are immense, huge, 100,000 square foot home, the one is on 5 acres of land. And yet each of their rooms, there's an intimacy and a warmth. I know that's hard for people probably to understand, but the scale and the way that it's designed, both architecturally and interior design wise, what is the secret? What are your, if you can you share, how do you accomplish that? Because you really do.
Well, I think with a house like that, particularly that one being so large, that was obviously on our minds from the beginning. That when we first spoke about it, Katie and I were kind of thinking, how can we make this feel more intimate and more like a home? It has a tendency to run off and become a palace or a convention center. So that was at the front of our head, like, how are we going to make that happen? And I think one of the keys to it was to take most of the program and separate it based on function. So we put a lot of the entertainment spaces in the lower level, which still had terrific views, but it gave land on top so the house itself could feel more like a house. And even though that in itself is still pretty large, I think it's like 35,000 square feet, but we didn't have too many rooms. There's not endless corridors. There's not like 20 rooms look identical. We just tried to make big, comfortable views and then put as much glass in as possible and open them to the exterior. So you're not even sure if you're inside or outside sometimes.
Really true. I mean, it's wall-to-wall glass, views from every single room that I saw. Waterways.
That light, of that site is that it's just so much view. We don't want to cut it off. We want that to be the start of the show.
Right. I'm just going to list a couple insane stats, like a 30-car garage, a bowling alley that you guys designed and built, a movie theater, state-of-the-art, 45-seater. All of this is
the largest
gorgeous.
In the country, actually. And I actually heard it might be called the largest in the world from residential. Yeah, from a residential theater.
And I have to say, it's one of the
70-foot long custom Brunswick bowling alley, which you saw. We almost played.
We almost played, and with all
but
the
we didn't.
there,
We didn't want to ruin the lanes.
Yeah. So I mean, just exquisite. I just couldn't see the details, just the feel of it. It was so beautiful. But all your homes that you do together are exquisite and have this stamp of contemporary and the details that you guys do so well. Kathryn, sorry, I like to call you Katie too. I know you go by
whatever you want. Yes.
Kathryn, how would you describe your design style?
Well, I'm born and bred in Los Angeles, so I would definitely say that I love the vibe of California chic. But I am very much inspired by and in love with the European market and European design, whether that's fashion or interiors. I've always grown up with a tremendous amount of admiration for a lot of the big designers. So I would say it's a blend of the two. It's European sophistication meets California chic. I like to add a lot of the glam and the wow factors into my interior. So I like the merging of those. And that's how I started, was Fendi Casa. It's a licensee of Fendi Fashion. I was so very much in love with their brand and the execution of carrying through a lot of the fashion forward thinking and carrying it through into the furniture. And I think from them, I then carried it through into my business. And so I've kind of merged the two worlds and the two different styles and two different countries. And quite frankly, that's how I would describe my design style.
Do you and Paul come into this together, or who does what, or at what point, if you would?
Right. Paul and I have yet to work on private clients together. So we work on the super high-end luxury market within spec homes. And so with that said, it's a collaborative process. There's the developer, then there's Paul, and then there's myself. So the developer often has their vision and their idea, and then we have to take that and execute it and then add in Paul's and my ideas. So we work as a team, and that's how it starts. And then we carry it through from there.
That's fantastic. Well, boy, don't
yeah.
Amazing.
Sometimes, like, for example, Katie mentioned that home on Sorbonne, which is the first project we did together. Just to give you an example, I mean, the developer came and he wanted a certain size house. But the problem with that lot is it was very, very steep and very, very narrow.
Right.
We had to kind of make the most of that. And Katie was integral in that process. And the materiality that she picked, and the furniture, and the way she put that together just really helped that house become something spectacular when it really had the possibility to not work, because it was like the lot was just so long and narrow. But we always together and turned it into something that became an advantage in the end. And that was a lot to do with how she put this.
Love that.
In terms of material.
I love that. You made lemonade out of what could have been lemons.
Kay was right there for doing that, making lemonade out of lemons. She does it.
Well, I was going to ask you both, because there's bound to be something that didn't meet your expectations, or vice versa, and it wound up being something that you loved, right? But you know what? I've seen you speak many times, Paul, so you like challenges. And California has, plenty of challenging topography. So I have a question for both of you pertaining to this. What is it about this Gold Coast of California where, the mega compounds, giga mansions with 9-figure price tags, they're no longer one-offs? So what do you attribute this to? Is it just always been California? What is it? Is it the open space that you get to play in?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of factors that come into it, but I think that in the big global sense, 20 years ago, Los Angeles was still sort of a company town, like basically Hollywood town. We've seen the drop off in all the aerospace industry and so on, but it became a global city in the last 20 years. And I think we've met people, both Katie and I, and we've had a lot of clients who are from all over the world that didn't used to come here. And love the lifestyle. They love the weather. Hands down, the weather, the views, the phenomenal views. Yeah. So I think there's enough people with enough resources to make that happen here, and the topography and the way the city is laid out, it's got relatively suburban feel, so there's a possibility to do big estates and have them in the middle of the city, which is very different than somewhere like London or New York, where you end up living in a townhome or a condominium. So I think that's
very unique.
Yeah, it's very unique that way. And I think it's going to keep getting better and better that way.
Yeah. And another thing
as long as you two are at it.
Sorry. I was just going to say that I think one thing that's so spectacular about a city like this is you have so many various areas, right? You've got Truesdale Estates, you've got Holmby Hills, you have Bel Air, you have the Flats. So you can really, based upon your desires and your needs, if you want a view, if you want a gated community, you can find that here, right? And so I love that about Los Angeles. I like the variety. I like designing for various clients with different needs, and working on very different homes and very different styles. So I love that.
That's awesome. Yeah. And always nature, right? You're never far away from nature here. And you both
never far away from nature. That's correct. Yeah.
And every home I've seen is the waterways. Let's talk about that, because you at the one you have like, almost three sides, like a contemporary water moat. But Paul, you guys, I've been to your other houses, and you always have some inventive, beautiful, sleek, either it's a water drop fall into a pool, besides a swimming pool, a lap pool, or just the use of water is so tranquil and calming and reflective and open. And I don't know, I just love your use of waterways.
I think all the things you just said, that's why we do that. And I think we're in a desert environment here, so in some ways it becomes more important for people to have that connection to water. But we use water in so many ways to basically to alter people's moods and to make them feel more calm and more reflective. And we use water to bounce light into spaces. We use water to naturally vent spaces so that it's cooler. We use it to slow people down, make them walk slowly across the water and just barreling in the front door and just have that sense of arrival. It's very important, I think, for all our houses to have that good sense of arrival, and for people as they enter to kind of change their perception a little bit, and then hopefully relax and say, okay, now I'm home, or now I'm visiting this really nice space, versus just being absorbed with everything that went on before you got out of the car or entered through the gate. Yeah.
Right. So very thoughtful and very mindful of not just aesthetically beautiful, but lots of thought goes into this. And that's what the sense is. And not to mention the wow factor, the lighting at night of these water, it's just one of my favorite trademarks of you guys, these homes. Katie, I'd love to know a little bit more about some of the slides we're seeing, sculpture. There's a big white sculpture. There is art. I want to hear your philosophy on how you choose. I mean, I know for spec houses, you've got the developer and all of you, but how are you selecting, and what sparks you?
So, for example, referencing a project like the one, the sheer scale of it, right? There's a grandness to it, and it's 110,000 square feet, and you have 23-foot high ceilings and beautiful open floor plan. But how do you make that livable and inviting? And how do you soften it up? And I do that with the selections of the materials, like the statuary marble on the floor, and softening it up with custom velvet walls made in Europe, right? So that we don't have these massive big block white walls everywhere. We soften it up with that, and we do it with the layering of the furniture and the accessories and custom pieces, much like the one that you referenced that sits in the entryway, which is 16 feet tall, titled Unity by Mike Fields. And it's spectacular, and it rotates, and it speaks to it's very grand and beautiful. It's got the same color. It's this milky white finish that ties into the Murano chandelier that's directly above it. So there's unity within those two, and they speak to each other. And then you walk throughout the house, and we carried that through with the color schemes and the material selections. And
in all your houses,
with Paul and
in all your homes that you do, right? You do
in all of the homes, yes. And all of the homes that I worked on with Paul as well. That's very, very important, because they all tend to have that grand scale. I don't think we've ever worked on a project under 20,000 square feet, right? So
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. And so palettes and all those things, because these are mostly spec houses, I see there's a uniformity, but variance within that. So tranquil, clean.
Yeah.
Neutrals.
Relatively neutral for those type of homes. Yeah, I think we have some homes that we're doing for private people where we can be more experimental in the materiality, because it's just for them. But when you're doing a home that you're hoping to sell, you're trying to appeal to a wider audience, and often people get intimidated by something, that you wouldn't really imagine. Sometimes people don't understand that you can swap things out relatively easily, but they might be put off by a color or a chandelier or something like, oh, I couldn't live there because of that color. And we're like, well, you can paint it.
You can paint it, right. So we do have to keep in mind that it has to appeal to the masses. It's a very different strategy, a design, than dealing with private clients, which are both equally rewarding and fun in their own way. But you need to have that mindset of not only what area are we designing in with Los Angeles, right? Because that's a completely different demographic with the Bird Streets versus Bel Air, right? So you have that. What style is the home? What is the layout? So there's so many variables and factors with that. Yeah.
Right. So you're right. And such diversity in the people that live
there
here,
really is,
right? From all over the world. So you have to have some sort of design to sell versus for the actual people that are going to live there are two different things always.
Exactly.
But you guys did such a beautiful, beautiful job. So I've had the privilege of now seeing some of your beautiful homes, but also I wanted to talk about the 21 homes in this book.
I've got it too.
Creating the contemporary house.
Right.
Let's talk about this. Where did you find the time to do a book? Has this been something you wanted to do?
Yeah, no, it's something I wanted to do for a long time. And luckily we had a lot of great help. We had a great writer, a great editor. But yeah, it is like another project. It's as complicated as building a house and trying to get 20 houses together and all the imagery and so on. It's just amazingly time consuming, but I think it was a good time. I felt like we had enough work done that we could fill a volume, and I do like that. It's great that it's out there and people seem to like it. That's really exciting.
It's fantastic. I'm coveting my signed copy.
That's right.
You got yours too? Yep.
Of course. Hello.
Do you have it just in case to hand to somebody?
Yeah.
And
right here on page 44 is where it all began, Paul. So I think we need
to
point this out.
We have a number of great projects. It's Rizzoli. It's by Rizzoli, and you had a co-author.
Yes.
The notes, and you even have diagrams and floor plans in there. It's just fabulous. And you just want to be beamed to any one of those spots instantly. Congratulations. Is there another book on the way? Probably. How many have you done since this?
There will be, huh?
A few. We hope to have another book out in about 2 years. But, it's COVID has slowed things down. A lot of our projects are just taking time to finish. And I'm excited about that because I feel that it will be a shorter time frame between the two houses. So we'll be able to see hopefully how we've progressed and what we've learned, and hopefully we can share that with people and pass that along.
Right. Oh, you will. So I know this question it's sort of like asking a parent what their favorite child is, but you're not supposed to do that, but I'm going to ask you both. Do you have a favorite project? Can you say?
Of course. Funny enough, I don't think this would be Paul's favorite project, but I personally loved Crescent. It's the home that Floyd Mayweather bought. I absolutely loved it. My favorite style to work on is transitional. And it was just a wonderful project. And I feel like that's really where I started to feel my creativity and feeling controlled as a designer. It's when I started my business. It's when I got to make very wild and creative decisions. And I think I felt alive. And so I really think I always look back to that, not just for the experience, but it's also quite exciting to then see who buys these homes, right? It's so spectacular to see whether they're celebrities or royalty or whoever they may be. And I can go on, and we can list a lot of names, but we won't. But I just think it was so fun just seeing him living in the space, posting pictures, enjoying the space. And that's what this is all about, enjoying the process, and then seeing who either purchases a home or working with the private clients and seeing them so happy in the space and loving their home, right? It's so special. And I still go back to that. I even look at Instagram all the time, and I'm like, I just go back and look at Floyd in the house, and I'm like, I did that. That's just so special. And I feel as if that home is still, in my opinion, quite timeless. All these years later, it's still photographed and rephotographed and reposted, and I still am very much proud of the interiors and the exteriors on that. So, that was my favorite project so far.
But you had so much other work up to this and in the future coming, I'm sure. Paul, what's your favorite?
Gosh, I really agree with you. You can't really name favorites. It's tough, but you do projects that were, should we say, seminal to our business and have made a big difference to my career. And obviously, there's that first house. When you do your first house, when you set up your firm, that's super exciting. There was, of course, the house we did on Blue Jay Way, which is interesting for a couple of points in that we finished the house around 2008 when things were starting to go really bad in the economy, but it put us on the map in Los Angeles. So that really, for that reason, made an enormous difference to our business. And we started working a lot more in Los Angeles. And that house ended up being owned by Tim Bergling, a VG, the DJ. And he and I worked on it together to make it personal to him. And that was just such a great honor.
How fun.
So that house definitely, you can point to that house and say, that's what really changed the trajectory of, our business and my career. So that definitely stands out. On a completely different note, I also am pretty proud of a house we did in San Francisco, which was a remodel of a 1903 mansion in Pack Heights. And it had survived the earthquake. It barely survived the Army and Navy after the war, who broke it up into a lot of little apartments. And we got to turn it back into a single family home. And it was just such a different project for us. And it's nice to think of it heading off on its next 100 years of journey,
that's fabulous. That's fabulous.
So that was really, although that's not what we do primarily, usually we do ground up, but just sometimes you get these great opportunities to look at something and build on what's there. Right?
Part of history, yeah. Part of history. I love it that you both have your favorites that were seminal moments in launching for you each.
Yes,
and I knew you probably did, but you never know, So thank you so much for sharing that. So I want to ask you a question. We're coming after a year here, after a global pandemic. What do you see? What demands do you get from clients, developers, either spec houses or for actual clients in the luxury contemporary market? Is it spas, wellness, health, technology? Each of you, I'd love to hear what your take is on what the current demand is and possibly what you'll see in the future, what we'll see in the future.
Well, funny enough, referencing again the super high-end luxury market of spec, one thing that I was able to do and work on and create, which truly is my passion, I love working on these, what I would call functional rooms. And most homes would not allow me to design this. But for example, we've got the juice bar and the bowling alley and these massive theaters, right? And the commercial grade salons and security rooms and fish tank rooms and nightclubs, ballrooms. Need I go on? It's
all in
amazing
demand
to be able to work on these. Yes. And then once a number of these have been publicized and public, I've had a number of private clients come to me and ask me to work on those. So that's kind of what now I believe I'm known for, is these grand scale, beautiful, high-end luxury spec homes. But now I'm transitioning more into private design and carrying through many of those elements and spaces into their homes and personalizing it for them and bringing a little glam and a little fun into their home. So yeah, that's all of my houses right now. I'm integrating rooms such as those. So it's been fun. It's definitely fun to work on that.
Yeah, you're both working at a scale where those demands, it's not everybody makes those demands, but you're able to deliver that.
Right.
So Paul, what do you think? Spas, wellness, game rooms? What?
The biggest things that have changed, I feel, are that people are way more interested, perhaps, and critical of the spaces they're living in.
That's true.
When before COVID, people would say things like, "Oh yeah, I need a home office," and then we check, there's a home office, and then really diving into it and saying, "Well, there's only two of us working here. How will this work? Or what if people come to my house? Business people? Do I want to see that whole house, or can I have a separate entrance? I have a view because I'm going to be here 10 hours a day." So I really noticed people looking a lot more carefully at their surroundings and taking a much deeper dive into it in the design phase than they used to in the past. And I'm talking about homeowners and everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely that sense, like gyms, wellness areas are a huge focus point right now.
Right. And don't forget also, not to cut you off, but also home theaters. Yes, we're talking in regards to COVID. Yes, people are spending far more time at home and they're paying attention to the details. And not only that, but the spaces that they desire to have in the home, because they're not leaving as much, they're not traveling as much, they're working from home more. So that is very true. And I would say theaters are number one. I don't know if I've worked on one house or am working on presently and drawing up homes that don't have our integrated theaters so that they can utilize that space with family, or home offices, like you said. That's very key. Yes.
Paul, what were you going to say?
People, are just realizing that there are opportunities to maybe work from home that weren't there before for some people, which is very fortunate. But it's like everything about how can I make my space more peaceful, less stressful. I think that people have really become aware of is that, and
aware of function too. I think this goes to any price point of homes. I think everyone was, a lot of people aren't going back to an office building,
right.
And they're looking around. And so what you're both saying is that, they're getting more particular. They have demands because they're paying attention more than they would have because they're spending more time there, or other people might be coming.
Right. And another space that we all have is the kitchen. So I have a lot of clients that are either redoing their kitchen, according to their needs, because people are now home cooking more often, right? And so even a space like that.
Right. I have a question. What about technology? The smart home and everything. Are you seeing a demand for that? What's the trend?
The biggest demand people have is not to have to deal with it. I've never met a single client who wanted to have their house souped up with technology. And the biggest complaint we get is there's too much technology. But the problem is the houses are so big and so complicated that they can't function without the technology. So the trick is finding a way to limit people so that they, we're doing homes sometimes for people where they have several homes, and we work to streamline the technology so it's exactly the same in every home so they don't have to be confused. And there's also the problem of, people coming to stay with you not being able to operate the room.
That's very true.
Yeah. So people are like obsessed with trying to simplify the technology, and I hope
that's amazing. That's very surprising.
Yeah.
But they're not eliminating the technology. They just want to simplify it. And that's so true. I get so many phone calls. How do I work this? Or, oh my gosh, I'm confused. I can't get this going, or the lights aren't working. So it can be quite confusing, but Wasnt is great. And there's so many new technologies that make it a lot easier, but you are so right. I get that request as well to try and simplify the technology. 100%. That's so true. Even I still get confused, and I know it. So,
Well, there are companies that are really good at sorting that out for everyone. That's really surprising. So you think, the bigger, the larger the estate, the more bells and buzzers and technology you'd have in there, which might be true, but we want it simplified. And I hope we're getting to that, everybody. You'd have to carry around 10 iPads just to turn the lights on. I went to someone's home and they said, can you go turn the lights on? I went,
how?
I just felt silly. I just like, this screen is black and I don't know what to do. So here's what I say. I say, I know I need to get to point A to B and everything needs to work, but please don't teach me how to build the car. One last thing. For each of you, or maybe you're doing this together, can you tell us about current projects or projects coming up in the future? Is it top secret, or can you share?
No, I mean, we have...
No top secret here.
No top secret right now.
Paul's will be far more exciting than mine. He's world renowned. He's so big. Us little people. Just kidding.
No, come on. Yeah, we are, one of the interesting things that happened to our firm during COVID was that the new projects we've got are not necessarily in California anymore. So that's really interesting, exciting. So right now we're working on projects in Canada and Las Vegas and Denver and Florida and in the Caribbean, and we're starting to go to all these places, which is a challenge in itself to get to visit them all. But it is very exciting to be working on projects in different places, and we're very excited about some of the new projects we're doing at Beachfront in Turks and Caicos, which is spectacular. We're doing a house that's floating over a lake in Florida, and just wonderful.
That one is phenomenal. I have to stop you there. Oh my God, that one is stunning and amazing.
Very excited.
Must be.
Ahead.
You have to see it, Jennifer. Yeah,
I'll go and you'll give me a tip. Okay,
yeah.
Another webcast.
So it's all been exciting, but and it's interesting in our pipeline that many of the projects are also somewhere else. So it's kind of going to be a challenge to figure out how to do this, to stay committed to our clients and not doing many projects and stay in a small firm, but doing them in all sorts of interesting places. And it all sounds very glamorous, and it is, but
it's just harder.
You just got to get on planes.
Travel time.
Travel time sucks, That's the problem. Yes. Jet lag is a factor in our business right now, So.
The only drag about living on the other side of this country is that you lose a day going anywhere.
Yes. Yeah. That's so
Katie,
true.
what about you? Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Paul.
No, that's true. I'm done. Katie, please.
You're done. Well, I have some very exciting projects. It's so funny. I mean, we were quote unquote essential during COVID. So I was still working and going to job sites very carefully with the mask on. But I was quite busy during COVID. And then recently, after the one hit and right about that time, I got bombarded. I mean, it was like an avalanche of projects and opportunities. And so much to your point, Paul, it's about the time management, right? And being able to allocate the proper amount of time to each client. So you have to really be selective and pick which projects you want to do. And so with that said, I have 3 bachelors. I love working with the bachelors. They're fun. And all of them want their party house in the hills by summer. So I'm working around the clock tirelessly with these 3 separate guys. They are so fun. I can't wait to show all of you.
Kathryn working with 3 bachelors in mega homes. I see a book or a show. Maybe it's The Bachelor.
You never know, Jennifer. Let's see what happened. I will be having a book very soon.
Okay.
Let's say within 5 years. Let's shoot for that.
I'll be on the lookout for it. Now, Katie, I know your dad. I met your father before I met you at Fendi 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You just started a venture with him. He's an amazing.
Yes. Very excited. I couldn't be more excited. And I think this is one of the most amazing points in my career thus far. I will be working with my father. We're starting Rotondi Design Build, and we will be doing some flipping throughout the Los Angeles area and Palm Springs. So I'm very excited about that. And hopefully integrating my uncle and my brother, who also works for my father. So it's going to come full circle from as a little girl when I was visiting the job sites and I kind of had this dream and I knew I wanted to get into it, now all the way to now and being able to work with the family. I mean, what's more special than that? I think
that is so special.
Amazing.
I was just going to say congratulations, Katie. That's awesome. I know.
I'm so excited. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Well, thank you so much for today. This has been eye-opening and so much fun and inspiring, and I can't wait to see your next projects. We all can't wait. Thank you again, and thank you all of you for tuning in to Wild on Design. I want to thank the Pacific Design Center and the Rob Report. I'm Jennifer Convy. We'll see you soon.